Hi, I'm Mark from Trinic. Today's video we're calling Trinic's H12 Part 2. We've gotten feedback from customers and questions, so we're going to attempt to show you the questions they had. One question was winter. How do I put this stuff on in the winter? The answer is in a 50-degree shop it's going to be very hard to do because the cure rate is going to come to a crawl. It might take you 3 to 4 days to apply it. But we're going to show you how to accelerate the curing using infrared heat. You don't want to add more catalyst to get it to cure faster, but heat is a catalyst. So if we can create a mini environment where you heat it, you can actually get your curing process done in a 1 day in winter. The other thing is vertical application. We're going to take our piece, stand it on end, we'll show you how to roll it. I don't have a sink here for three-dimensional, but it'll be similar for a sink. You just roll in the corners or use a foam brush. We've got the product comes like this, part A and part B side. We've got the cautions on the back. This is an isocyanate, so the people that are sensitive to that, just beware of the fact that it builds sensitivity. Similar to the way creosote does. But wear rubber gloves when you put it on, read the cautions, understand them. And due to demand, we're also got 2 different size syringes we're going to send with the product. One is for the A side, the bigger one is for B side. The one is in milliliters, which is the same as cc's, just so you know. Here's the first thing we did in our winter shop. We created what I call a microclimate or microenvironment. Our shop is 60 degrees, which would almost be acceptable. We tell people on this sealer, apply it and then let it till it's dry. Once it's dry to the touch, add an hour for your next coat. Now in a 50-degree shop, you may have to add 3 hours to your next coat. In a 90-degree shop, it may only be a half hour to your next coat. But to speed things along, we installed an infrared heater. This is a 3,000 watt, 220 volt one. Reading the instructions on it, it's supposed to raise the temperature of what you're pointing it at 20 degrees at 6 feet away, 8 feet away, I believe. So our shop is normally 60, this table would be 60. Now we're at 85. That's the only way you're going to speed the curing of the sealer up is with heat. The next thing to do is heat your concrete up to temperature, and while you're applying the sealer, shut the heater off. You don't want to bake the sealer, you certainly never want to bubble it. And I wouldn't want your pieces to get above 90. 90 is fine. If you get them up to 85, you'll see this sealer will dry within a half hour, I would say. Open flame you don't want, torch you don't want to introduce water, all that stuff. Infrared's probably the best way. If you had a paint booth where they paint cars and you could slide all your material in there and use their drying lights, that'd be perfect. We will clean with acetone first, and then we're going to seal part of that with a vertical application, and we're going to lay it back down and do the rest flat. To prep your pieces, this particular piece has been ground at 200 grit, 400 grit, and that's it. It didn't have any bug holes that we needed to patch. It has a few minor blemishes, but I'm not worried because it's just a sample. This piece is actually steel-like. It's the name of a new mix design called Steel-like. This piece right now is probably above 20,000 psi, so we're just going to do a test just to make sure. This piece is probably about 11,000 psi. So acetone, just wipe them down quick. Okay, we're ready to start sealing. First thing we're going to do when we're ready to seal, we've got our first coat mixed up, is we'll shut the heater off while we're sealing. You can turn it back on later, but until you get the first coat laid out, shut your heater off. Now the process of doing a vertical, the end result is the same. You want to give the concrete all of the sealer at once. This is the first coat, so this is a 7-to-1 dilution. You need a roller pan. Or you just roll it rather than flood it. You can do the same thing if you're sealing flat too. You don't need to dump it on. And eventually it gets to the point where it doesn't want any more. it should be sucking in. This piece has been heated now by our infrared lamp. It's about 85 degrees. As it's cooling, the pores will shut and it will suck the sealer in. If you get runs now, it's okay. You can roll them out. It's actually pretty easy to do. But you just want to get it all at once for about 5 minutes. Till it hits, once it hits the sweet spot where the sealer starts to get to the point where you roll it and it doesn't leave any roller marks, you're getting close to done. Even if it does run, no problem, just roll it out. You don't need to roll continuously. You can let it sit, just wipe off any grip marks. It'll hit the point where it's, see, my roller's still plenty wet. So I'm still adding as needed, allowing it to suck it in, adding a little more. It's been about 5 minutes and I think my concrete has all at once. Our roller still has a good bit of material in, so I'll run it down the paint tray. Then if you need to, you can use a paper towel. Just squeeze it into the paper towel a little bit. Get most of the excess off. Now what I'm looking at, I'm seeing the roller lines dissipate. The roller dissipate as I'm rolling. That's what you're looking for. It hits a sweet spot where you're not adding or removing material, but when you roll, the roller lines disappear. There's no runs, no drips. Because we heated this slab, the slab's probably about 80 still. This happened very quick. If it was a really cold shop, this would take a long time, and your concrete would be less likely to suck in the sealer as well. Well, I can see that's it. This one I'm done with. There's no low lines left on the roller. Concrete has all it wants. It's uniformly color enhanced. I'll leave this go for, put this back on the table till the next coat. That's it for vertical. We followed the same thing, coat 2, coat 3, right down the line. We've demonstrated the vertical. Now this piece here, it started at 85, our shop is 60. It took about 10 minutes, now it's down to 75. This one's still 82. The reason for that is we didn't put any liquid on, we didn't get any evaporative cooling. First thing we're going to do is shut off our heater when we seal. We heated our pieces up to about 85, this one's down to about 82. Same with this one, we're going to put it in there here. Now there's absolutely nothing wrong with using a paint tray and a roller to apply. You don't need to, the first video we demonstrated how to put it on. Just soak your roller up well, roll a coat. I suppose you'll waste less material. The end result's about the same. Dump it on, roll it on, however you want to do it. I said this one's a 20,000 plus PSI piece. Now what you might see, I can see a little bit of rejection going on because the concrete's so dense. What you have to do is keep rolling until it accepts it. It'll hit a point where it does absorb it, and then you're going to take off the excess. As I said, there's nothing wrong with using a paint tray, maybe especially for the later coats. It just takes a little longer, that's all. I'd sooner have it on the piece and roll it around. Now by doing these two side by side, I can see the difference between 20,000 and 11,000. That's a light streak right there. I'll try to get rid of. Now this piece is accepting the sealer much better. Just took a couple minutes, that's all. This is why you do the 7-to-1, so it doesn't start to kick before the concrete accepts it fully. Because our concrete's warm and cooling, it's sucking the sealer in. This is not flammable, but you don't need any type of torch or open flame with it. I'd much rather use a little bit of radiant heat. Well, looks like it's getting to the point where it has all at once. Be patient. Let me wipe that up a little bit. Gonna wring out my roller in my pan. And start to roll off any excess. If you need to, you can wring your roller out or use a paper towel, suck off the excess. Now it's getting to the sweet point where I can roll. There's no bubbles. The roller lines dissipate soon after I go over it. That looks really nice. Uniformly distributed. Concrete has all at once for this first coat. The first coat will dry much quicker than other coats because of the water content. Just watch for any bubbles, just roll, roll, roll. Now it's to the point where that's it. I roll, 5 seconds, rolls out. Can't hurt it, no matter what I do. I'm just killing time. I don't need to do this because it's set. Now don't blast it with your infrared heat right away. I would wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Let it just start to dry out a little, then you can heat it. Remember, we're recommending 1 hour after dry to the touch. For instance, this is already dry to the touch. And that's only 10 minutes old, so the infrared heat is doing its job, just because we heated the slab to 85. This one here, we're gonna let sit 10 minutes, hit it with the heat. You could probably come on it sooner than an hour, but an hour would be safe. What happens is we want this layer to get all of the moisture out. When you get all of the moisture out, it gets super hard. That's where you get your scratch resistance. You get your stain resistance from multiple coats building layers. If you were to put another coat on too soon and lock this moisture in, the moisture has a hard time migrating through and getting out, especially if you lock it with another coat. So the goal is get a coat on, get the moisture out of that coat, let the catalyst react with the heat, and then go with another coat. We'll let this sit for 10 minutes and turn the heat on. It's been about 10 minutes since we applied it. Since this is the first coat, it's doing two things. It's sucking into the concrete and it's going out to the atmosphere. That's one of the reasons it dries so quick. Once we get the concrete seal, the seal will only be evaporating to the atmosphere. It won't be going into the concrete. Now that it's got a dry look to it, we can turn our heat back up. We'll heat it for an hour. If we heat this sucker for an hour, every coat, this will be about as hard as you can get this sealer. If your shop is 50 or 60, you may need to wait 2 to 3 hours or longer between coats. It's not linear, the progression. The hotter it gets, it might go 4, 8, 10 times as fast. We're recommending an hour minimum between coats just to be on the safe side. It's been an hour since the first coat dried. We put the first coat on, let it dry, turned our heater back on, let it heat for an hour. Right now it's exactly 90, 87, 86. So it's been an hour at close to 90 for the first coat to cure, which I'm hoping is overkill. The worst thing you want to do is not allow it to cure properly. Second coat, I've got it mixed up 4 to 1. Incidentally, you don't need a new roller every time. You just take the roller and put it in a plastic bag like this and it'll last between coats without a problem. I turned the heater off so that now my slabs are cooling slightly. I'm not going to bake the sealer as it goes on. I imagine this will dry pretty quick though. You can see it's sucking right on through, which is great, and redarkening. It's building layers of protection, but it's also getting very, very hard because of the way we're curing it, the length of time we're curing it. I might as well go ahead and do the whole thing. Because it's warm, it's really sucking it in and evaporating it too. Keep it moist, let it have all at once. And do not run your heater while you're sealing, because then you'll evaporate the moisture too quickly. Just from wetting it, I dropped from 90 down to 82 uniformly due to evaporative cooling. To the point where I'm going to wring my roller out a little bit and start to work it dry. I can actually feel the warmth on my roller. That's it. Laid out beautifully. We are ready to allow it to dry. Once it's dry, we'll turn the heater on, and then we will cure it for a full hour, even after it's dry. The heaters have thermostats on too, so you don't need to, and I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Just to be sure. We let it dry, which took about 30 minutes this time, because we're getting to the point where it's only coming out, not going in. And then we heated it for a full hour up to about 90. And now we're at, let it cool off a little, we're still at 83, 84. You don't want to seal something at 90 or else it flashes off too quick. Let it drop down into the 80s. and it will be much easier to seal. In fact, I gotta let this sit a couple more minutes. That piece is still 90, which is a little bit too hot. The table's already at 75, so it'll cool off. We're gonna let these cool down to about 80. It's much easier to roll this stuff at 80 than it is at 90. What I decided to do is, since this is a sample, I coated this one while the surface temperature was 90, and I got little tiny almost bubbles that wouldn't roll out properly. What probably happens is it flashed off too quick. 90 surface temperature with heat is too hot. 90 in your shop would probably be okay. You may have to dilute a little more and not go with quite that much dilution. This piece here we allow to cool down to 80. Same with that one. And this is our 4-to-1 coat. 80 seems reasonable, more reasonable than 90. Don't do it if it's 90 and sunny. Wait till it's a little bit cooler. Here's the conclusions that we came to when we tried to heat our tops with our infrared lamp. Number one, if it's greater than 80, the coats that are 2-to-1 just don't work. If your slab's 80, in the summertime, if it's over 80, 2-to-1, it gets too sticky to apply. What you'll do is you'll put more 3-to-1 or more 5-to-1 coats on, because they'll lay out easier and the stuff will evaporate quicker. Turn off your heaters before sealing, and allow the slabs to drop below 80. Here again, it's because of that. If you let them get to 75, it goes on nice and it lays out nice. If you try to seal at 90, it's a failure. The stuff will dry out as you're putting it on. And always allow at least an hour after the coat is dry to the touch before you recoat. It means when you're touching it and you still feel slimy or sticky, it's not dry. Let it get dry an hour after that. With a heater, you're able to put it on, takes maybe 20 minutes to dry, and then heat it for an hour, and then you can put another coat on.